What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Wednesday, October 16th, 2024. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host, Phil. Episode 308. We are getting closer and closer to not just the Bandit season, but more importantly, 2 shows a week, Phil. Are you getting excited to get back to 2 shows a week? Are you dreading it, or what are your feelings? Because we got like a month and a half until that happens.
Both. I feel like when we start 2 shows a week, it's like insane season in life. So the first month of getting back to it, not only will it be just a lot more work again, but it'll also be a lot going on with holidays and work and life and everything kind of going on. So the first return to it will be very hectic once we hit January and things settle down a little bit. Then I feel like I'll just feel more at ease and more ready to dive into it closer to then. But I feel like December is going to be hectic, brutal, exhausting, the usual. So not looking forward to that part of it. But once we actually settle into Bandit season and get past the holidays, then I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we're still fine-tuning what this 4th season of covering the Buffalo Bandits will be about. We'll have more announcements, probably not next show, but maybe the following show. Maybe we'll do a Halloween episode of revealing what's happening for our 4th season of covering the team. But we're bringing stuff back that we did last year, but we're also adding to it. So I don't know if it'll increase our workload, but it won't decrease our workload. I think it's another way to get more of the listeners involved, as well as get more of the Bandits fans who might not have heard about this podcast also involved, and trying to take them from maybe just like this normal fan that goes to games or catches them every once in a while on ESPN Plus to more knowledgeable fans or more passionate fans when it comes to actually knowing more of the players around the league, or maybe the players around just in Buffalo in general, because they are superstar athletes and there's big name players playing just locally and living here locally in Buffalo playing for this team. So I think even if you're not just listening to our podcast, if you're listening to the Cross Classified or any of the other Bandits podcasts are out there as well, trying to give this sport and this team more attention that it rightfully deserves. That's why this podcast started. That's why it continues into its 4th season. But I'm excited to unveil what we have lined up. Like I said, we're bringing back stuff that was a success last year. We're fine-tuning some stuff that were successful last year, but also adding more fun and involvement to the listeners as well.
Yeah, it should be interesting, and the Bandits seem to be primed to give us another good season, so that helps. That helps a lot. Helps our coverage and helps the listeners and the fans and pretty much every aspect. Everything goes a little bit better when your team is winning and they are also champions.
Very true. It extends our length of doing 2 shows, but
also very true.
It's fun itself. So remember, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com. There you can check out our store. All you got to do is hit that shop tab at the top of the website, or if you're on the socials that I just mentioned, you can check out our link tree all there in the bios. It can take you right to the store itself. You can represent the BSC on the go when somebody stops you and say, hey, what's this all about? You can let them know it's your favorite podcast out there, and to give it a listen, and look for time breakdowns in the description of the show. Yes, I know a big trade for the Buffalo Bills went down, and we will be discussing that as we go through this, but they did have another primetime game, their last one for a while. Thank God, Phil. I can't do these late nights anymore. Bills, 23-20 win over the Jets. It was a ugly game to watch. towards the end, it was comical to watch just because every play you were wondering, oh, is that little yellow flag going to be thrown onto the field? And yes, it was. I think I saw like 23 or 24 accepted penalties. Accepted. That means there were other ones that were declined that were called. It was a game that seemed like nobody wanted to win, and it was a game that the refs wanted to be a big part of. But Phil, what were your thoughts on getting the win, most importantly, but especially against a division foe?
Yeah, it was ugly, and if it weren't for the trade, I was ready to come on here and rant a little bit more. And even before the trade went down, I had pretty much two schools of thought after this game with how close it was, with how ugly of a win it was. Arguably one that they really didn't deserve to win. The Jets kind of gave it away at multiple times. Both kickers kind of gave it away. But going into this, like if the trade, we'll assume the trade didn't happen. My two schools of thought with the Bills after this game were you either have to figure out if you're going for it or you have to figure out if you're going to punt this season, and just kind of their mentality going into the season, which was we'll do the best we can, but whatever happens, happens. We're not really pushing that hard this year. And then they went out and made a move to push harder this year. So that definitely helps things. But as far as this game goes, it was just ugly. Like it just was. I mean, the back and forth aspect of it was fun. The division rival was fun. The refs made it not as fun. It was great to see Ray Davis, and I don't know why secondary backups were a big thing this weekend. And from fantasy that the Tampa Bay third string running back had an explosion of a game behind Irving, who I really wanted. And Ty Johnson was, in theory, the starting running back heading into this game.
It did start.
He had one huge run, and then they were like, all right, thanks for your contribution. You're done, Ray Davis. You're going to handle all of it. And he looked fantastic. I mean, Ray Davis was probably the story of the offense. Allen looked good. He definitely didn't do anything bad, which is arguably some of the bigger things with Allen. I mean, that, again, we talked about this off podcast, but the hero ball, to see it in action, literally play by play, to see one side, the dark side, we'll say, of Allen's hero ball, where he fumbles and they almost lose the possession and have absolutely no points to come from it in a game that they won by 3. And then the next play, he does hero ball again and gets a touchdown out of it. That is just the Josh Allen experience in a nutshell. Back-to-back plays. One, you almost lose the ball and get no points whatsoever when he shouldn't have thrown it. And then the other, he plays hero ball and gets you a touchdown. So kind of fun to see the sides of Allen. He got very lucky that fumble was recovered. It was a huge part of that game and ended up being an even bigger part of the game. But the offense, obviously the trade changes things quite a bit, but it still looks pretty much in shambles. If your main red zone target is Mac Hollins, that's a bit of an issue. Yes, he got a touchdown, but a 3rd and goal where you absolutely needed a touchdown. It was a really big play, and he wasn't able to come down with it, and you didn't really have that go-to red zone threat. You went to Mac Hollins in a really big point of the game, and that's just not good enough. The offense was, I don't know, they're weird. I still don't really get, I mean, yes, everybody eats, but at the same time, nobody seems to be doing all that well. Kincaid, 6 of 7, sounds good. 51 yards is not very good for 6 catches. I mean, just the offense is very weird. Again, the trade changes everything. The defense was not great, but not awful at the same time. It was another both kind of thing. I mean, Garrett Wilson and, Lazard is weird with his Hail Mary, which, my goodness, Buffalo, can you stop letting the Hail Marys score? It's a little embarrassing. But for the defense, Garrett Wilson did incredible, which is not great for your cornerbacks. The safeties didn't look great. Breece Hall did amazing, especially having him in fantasy. I know he's been a dud for a very long time, and then all of a sudden he just lit up the Bills, and they are one of the worst run defenses in football. So the defense needs help. The offense needs help. Congrats on the win.
Yeah, moral of the story, they got the win. This was a very important win. Out of these 3 road games, the Jets was definitely the one you needed to have because it would have been a big swing game. It would have went from being 4-2, Jets are 2-4, you got a 2.5 game lead, to you're both 3-3. Jets have a half a game lead in the division. That's how big of a game this was, and that's how massive a win this was. So I'm not trying to downplay that at all. If you were, it's kind of similar to after the Baltimore loss. If you were to tell me after 6 weeks that this team would be 4-2, considering all the question marks we had going into the season, I would have taken it and probably ran with it. Davis definitely is the talking point of this one. I mean, one game, but I think I put it in one of our chats. It already makes me feel okay about the Bills not going to extend, or hopefully not going to extend James Cook. Yes, that's another year down the road, but his style and how good he actually looked, it was fun to watch him just mowing over players. He was good in the passing game, had that long 55-yard catch. Rapp was really good in the second half. I was ready to just come on here and just light him and Damar Hamlin up. And Rapp had a very good second half. Hamlin, they got to find another safety, man. He's not cutting it right now. He's playing in a role that he shouldn't be in right now. And I think Cole Bishop needs to take a step forward. I don't know what is up with Mike Edwards that he can't crack this lineup whatsoever. Like, how bad can he be that Damar Hamlin continues to not get pushed for reps at all back there? So I think that's another thing. We already talked about we're going to talk about the trade. It's already noted that the trade happened with Amari Cooper, but I think safety is the next number one target out there. I know everybody's going to talk about kicker, but there's issues with that, and there's no kickers out there. They have to address this other safety position. To me, I think Rapp, he saved himself in the second half. Taron Johnson, he was a bit rough, but we're gonna look past that after being out 4 or 5 games. Massive interception to close it out. Defense stopped Green Bay 4 of 12 on third down. Green Bay Jets. I'm thinking about it's the color green and Aaron Rodgers.
Rodgers and Adams.
Third downs. I think Epinesa was an animal. That sack that was a roughing the passer. Even Aaron Rodgers said it wasn't a roughing the passer. It's just another stupid ref. I'm trying not to talk about the refs. Bernard, absolutely electric. Josh Allen and Ray Davis, that connection they have between the running game and the big passing game was great. Allen, big third down run to end it. The bad, though, the defensive line generated no pass rush in the whole first half. I thought Benford and Douglas were very shaky. I already mentioned Hamlin. Before the trade happened with Amari Cooper, I said that they needed a wide receiver because the passing game just is way too difficult. Bringing in Amari Cooper should definitely help with that. And we're going to go for a bit more here. But Bass, he has to go, but he can't because there's no money. They just cut MVS, who's is going to be 2.25 against the cap, whether he was playing or not, and he wasn't doing anything. He was just taking up body on the roster space. And then the penalties, like I mentioned, it wasn't fun to watch whatsoever. But the biggest thing here, and then we can kind of talk about Amari Cooper, and I know I'm kind of ranting a bit. Sean McDermott, man, like it's another defensive timeout where whatever he said to his guys did not work. Goes back to 13 seconds. This is 14 seconds in a Hail Mary. This is the Cardinals with DeAndre Hopkins all over again. Like I don't care if you only rush 2 guys. Like whatever. Like I would have rushed 4 so you didn't have 14 seconds for the wide receivers to get all the way down there right after a sack. I believe they had just on the play before that. But what? You call a timeout. You don't tell your defensive backs, like, what was Taron Johnson doing in front of Lazard? Like, he was just grabbing his leg. Like, what was Rapp and Hamler doing? Like, this is a thing where you knock the ball down. They were all going for the interception. Like, how many times can we see this in the 8 years on Sean McDermott's watch? They keep finding ways, and yes, they went on to win it, but I don't think this is going to be hammered home enough because they ended up winning it, is the ineptitude of Sean McDermott in these type of games and in these close situations where it just seems like whatever is said isn't going through to the defensemen's heads, or, he's just telling them to do the wrong thing. But it was just inexcusable that happens, and it hurts my brain why that was even able to happen.
And like you said, the win overshadows it completely. Like, if you lose this game, everyone's talking about the Hail Mary and that shouldn't have happened, and what happened with the timeout, and just I don't understand. I don't know. I don't understand how defenders misplay a Hail Mary. Like it's like what, 7-2 down in the end zone. Like you're the whole defense is down there against like 2 players. Like I don't understand how anybody ever comes down with that kind of play, let alone, I mean, Hopkins or whoever it was. It wasn't Hopkins. Was it Hopkins?
Lazard.
No,
Alan
back
Lazard.
when the other one.
Oh yeah, that was DeAndre Hopkins
Okay,
versus
that's
Arizona.
what I
Yep.
thought. Like he's at least like an incredibly talented wide receiver who just high pointed the ball, made an incredible play. Lazard, yes, he's decent, but he should not be beating you in the end zone for that kind of play. Like, yes, he's a big bodied wide receiver, but he's not, anything that should be out jumping you, out beating you for talent wise. Like you said, just not get down. I just don't understand how that ever happens. And like you said, I think it's a much bigger talking point if they lose this game and you're, seeing 7 points on a play that shouldn't have existed. So I don't know. I think Ray Davis, honestly, like what do you do? Not even looking next year. What do you do as the Bills moving forward when Cook comes back and he's still good? I mean, Cook's been very good all season, but now Ray Davis can take this amount of a workload and make it look really good. Like you said, the passing game is one of the bigger things with him because Cook is known to drop the ball quite frequently, and Davis looked really great 3 for 3 on his targets. And then, yes, he kind of bobbled the one and it was close, but it was a tough play and he made a good catch on it. So if you're the Bills moving forward, how do you still run Cook out as your RB1 and give him the massive workload? Or do you think they're going to start splitting it closer, 10 carries each, a couple passes each? Do you think it's going to be closer to a 50-50 after this monster game and seeing what Ray Davis can truly do? Like you said, bowl people over, where they're different styles. And that's why Ray Davis was brought in, he's a different style runner to complement Cook. So do you think it's a closer split, or do you think once Cook's healthy, they just hand it back over to him and Davis kind of takes the seat?
I think it's still Cook's backfield to run away with, but I think it's nice to know that you do have a guy in Ray Davis who can pull that out if need be. And I think there are going to be certain situations where you'd rather have a Ray Davis out there than a James Cook. And in this game, it proved that, okay, now Ray Davis, they were still running him out when it was that close game. They were trusting him with the ball security. So I think this is less about how will Ray Davis affect the James Cook? It's more about, hey, now we know we have another weapon if we need it in certain game situations where, hey, Ray Davis can get this 3rd and 2, where James Cook is more of a elusive bat than a Ray Davis is, and he's just lower his body and get that 3rd and 2. So I think this also takes some workload off of James Cook long term, because he will be nursing this foot, toe, ankle, whatever the heck is wrong with him. But I don't think this cuts much into James Cook's workload, but I do think that there will be more play designs designed for Ray Davis after seeing what it is. I don't think this really affects a ton, but I think this will benefit the offense more than going into this game we knew Ray Davis was capable of.
And we do have a trade to discuss.
Yeah, Amari Cooper coming over for very cheap. And right before then, Devontae Adams went to the Jets. Shocker. Nobody saw that coming. But yeah, I think everybody knew that after the Baltimore game, and I think the majority of the season we were seeing that, hey, this everybody eats only works when someone's hungry, and nobody was really hungry all season long.
The other team's defense is trash.
Yeah, Kincaid has not stepped up what we thought he was. Shakir is a dangerous weapon, but he's a slot undersized guy there who is a weapon, but he can't be the lead weapon in your offense. Like I mentioned when he missed the game versus Texans, a 5th-round player in a slot role should not deteriorate your entire offense. Like, that shouldn't happen. So I think adding an Amari Cooper is exactly what this offense needed. I said there were 3 things that this team needed to address moving forward. It was wide receivers, it was safety, and it was the kicking department. You already fixed one, bringing in Amari Cooper. Now, I'm not saying that he's the next Stephon Diggs. I'm not even saying that he's going to fix this whole offense. But he's a capable, known name in the league that can still get it done. His numbers are down, but guess what? He's dealing with the worst quarterback in the NFL, possibly in the NFL history, in Deshaun Watson right now because he just stinks. He's terrible over there. And the Browns, I feel bad for their fans because you're stuck with him. Like, there's no way moving that gap. So him coming over from being one of the worst quarterbacks to one of, if not the best quarterback in the league, his numbers are going to get better. Now, I think this was definitely going to help the offense. I don't know if it's going to help them drastically this coming week versus Tennessee because Tennessee has, one, they have a very good defense, but two, Cooper still has to learn the playbook and everything. But this is a much, anybody watching this is a much needed and one of their top priorities. And I'm very happy. I was a little worried that Brandon Beane wasn't. I knew he was going to try, but I'm happy that he was able to pull this off for as cheap as he did. And this is a not mortgaging the future, but this is a go for it. This is kind of like it was Benjamin when they were trying to break the drought. This is Douglas last year where they needed a cornerback. This is him knowing, okay, I see what's going on. I need to address it. And getting in Amari Cooper like this for as cheap as they did, absolutely love it because he's pennies on the dollar and you're not committed to him next year. So I absolutely love it. If they extend him, let's hope it's cheap money because he is 30. And I want another rookie wide receiver coming in next year. Keep the weapons coming for the Josh Allen in his prime.
Yeah, I think this is huge. I love, even when all the talks of trades and everything, and like obviously Devontae Adams would have been amazing, but the big thing with Cooper, with me, and I mean having him on fantasy, it's been very tough. I think there was a stat the other day that like 45% of his targets this year have been catchable, which is atrocious. But the big thing to me with him, like everyone knows what Cleveland is right now. And again, it is terrible for their fan base because they are stuck. But they're not a good team, but he's a player who's not complaining. And that's one of the big things with me with him. Like he's 30. I'm sure he kind of knew he was likely on the trade block with his contract with them and just looking terrible so far. But, there's no real controversy with him. Like he wasn't in the news ever of, oh, he's complaining or anything like that. Like he just seems so quiet and reserved right now on a terrible team. And he's a talented wide receiver. And like even Ridley the other day, I mean, he's, had a pretty decent name, but he had a very interesting comment about his QB and his team and everything like that. And like to see Cooper and what he's going through with one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL, making most of his targets not catchable, like he has every right to complain about what was going on in his situation. You just never really heard anything about it, which was good to see. And then for the Bills offense, I think the biggest thing with this is what you talked about before the season with Diggs. And I think the offense as a whole, like you said, like he's not going to be this incredible, like, yes, he's a very good wide receiver. He's not going to be like a game breaker, though, who's just out here getting, 200 yards, 3 touchdowns on 15 targets. But what he does do, which is really important, which, again, you mentioned before the season started, is he shifts everyone's coverage down. Like the other teams need to focus on him now, and they have somebody to focus on, which opens up Coleman will no longer have a CB1 on him. And even Kincaid can be, open a little bit more, hopefully down the field a bit more. Shakir should be able to get a little bit more open. Like the coverage from the defense shifts every single player to be more beneficial and be more open because now you have a wide receiver one on this team, which is what they were missing. So not only is he a talent boost just himself, and yes, he's going to make hopefully a big difference, and in situations where it's 3rd and goal and you need a touchdown, hopefully he can be that guy who gets open in the end zone for Allen. But it also helps the entire offense unlock a little bit more, just him being on the field and his presence. So really, really great trade. Was wondering if it would ever happen, was really, really hoping it would happen, but with everything, like you said, we saw from Bean, and we've been hearing about this season of, it's about the future, it's not about this year. I didn't know if they were going to go and get it, especially with other teams like KC also in the mix for a wide receiver. So great to see it, especially, like you said, right after the Jets in your division make a big trade, the Bills go out and make a big trade shortly after. So overall, just great to see that they are willing to go forward. And like you said, hopefully safety will come up before the trade deadline.
Yeah, I'm actually wondering, and what you said kind of dawned on me. If they lose against the Jets does this trade happen? Like,
I
does that
I
push
like
them?
that's where I was again. Like I said before this trade occurred, before this episode, I was going to come on and basically say like they need to figure out are they going to go for it
Right.
this year or not, and if not, they needed to start trading away players like Von Miller probably has a ton of value right now to a Detroit Lions team who just lost Aiden Hutchinson. Like he was averaging 1 sack a game. Yes, he is currently suspended, but he'll be back. He's a Super Bowl winner. Like they have players on their team that they could have traded away to get draft capital for the future if they planned on truly punting this season. But now after that win, putting themselves in the driver's seat for the AFC East, I can see them kind of saying like, okay, realistically, they should win the AFC East. They're in a great position to do so. Let's go for it. And then, like you said, this trade happens. If they lose this game, I don't think that trade happens. And then you're wondering if they are a sell off trade deadline kind of team. So, really, really big swing game for the 6th game of the season.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm not at the point of a sell-off at that point, but I'm at the point of they're 3-3, they're second in the division now. Let's continue to work Coleman and let's continue to work these.
Like the
these
big thing
younger
with me
players
at that
on this
point
team.
is like, do you really think you have Super Bowl hopes? And if not, what are you doing? Like, if you don't
Right,
think
but
you
it
can
also
beat
comes down to
Baltimore, if you
the
don't think you can beat KC in the playoffs, then if you make it and lose, what are you doing for your franchise? Like, you're not helping anything. So just forget it. Like,
right, but
I
it will
don't
come
know.
down to, hey, does the Von Miller contract work to push out? Can you financially afford that kind of stuff?
Right.
That's why I'm less
Right.
about does the sell off happen and more about let's continue to roll with what
Right.
we got as
Push
the
the
transition
push the
year.
young guys.
Yes, yeah. Let's give Cole Bishop some more time at the
Right.
safety and replace Hamlin back there. Let's give some of the defensive linemen who we just drafted some more opportunities there.
And
Less
if they
so
struggle, who
Right.
cares? Because it's
exactly.
over.
That's what I would think would more
Gotcha.
happen. Less about the sell off and more about well, we don't even have to worry about now because I'm just
Right.
happy I'm going to see less Matt Collins roles and get him back to the
Yes.
special teams where he deserves to be. Well, not that I shouldn't pick on him. We know what he is.
He's got a couple touchdowns
for
for his credit. He
it
does.
helps when you're wide open because why would they throw it to Matt Collins? But yeah,
When
their
he
next
scored his
game's
first touchdown and his foot almost landed out of bounds, I was like, oh my gosh.
second touchdown. I think he scored in week 1. But we will.
Oh yeah,
talk
I meant
about
this.
the,
Well, yeah,
oh
he
yes,
missed the second one.
this
Sorry,
But
the
we'll talk
touchdown.
about the Tennessee game, the Sunday 1:00. Thank you. Yeah, Sundays from now on for a little bit. But we'll move forward to Sabres. Thursday versus the Kings. They lost 3-1. Tuck was the only goal scorer. UPL 20 of 22 saves. Shots were 33-23 in favor of the Sabres. But you're looking at an 0-3 start, and you're going, oh man, it's all over again. And then out of nowhere, Saturday versus Florida, they went 5-2. Greenway, Tage, Yoki, Samuelson, and Tuck were the goal scorers. Levi started in this one. 23 of 25 saves. Shots were 27-25 in favor of Buffalo. I have 7 for some reason, but it is 27-25 for Buffalo. They get off the schneid. They avoid an 0-4 start. And thank you to Barkov. Thank you to Matthew Tkachuk for not playing in Saturday's game, because if you do, that result might have been different. But a 1-3 start, and they're on a 1-game winning streak. Phil, what are your thoughts on the 2 games that just happened a couple days ago now?
Can we get to a multi-game win streak?
It took a while to get to 3 games last year. Let's see if we can build off it.
I think the biggest things with these two are you really saw what this team is supposed to look like and supposed to be under Lindy Ruff, the fast, the aggressive, the exciting. I mean, was it perfect? No. But did they look way, way better than they did to start? Yes. And
It looked alive.
again, I think, right. And the big thing is you just saw what this team was supposed to look like. And one of my friends asked me recently, like, oh, what do you think of the NHL season so far? And I think the NHL, because there's so many games, like it's so different than the NFL, where even in the NFL, it still takes, 3-4 weeks to really understand what teams look like and everything. And the NHL, I think it takes 10, 15, 20 games before you really understand what a team is, what the league looks like. And the Sabres are a big example of that. Like those first 2 games were atrocious. They did terrible. They looked uninspired, looked like they didn't want to play. And then these 2 games, you see a little bit closer to what we expected to see out of the gate from this team, and just more opportunities, more aggression, more hitting, more speed. Like, this is what we were expecting to see from the, out of the gate. It didn't happen. You were worried. Like you said, starting 0 for 3, even though the Kings game looked much, much better, still not what you're hoping for. And then the Florida win, like you said, maybe aided by missing some top players, but we'll take what we can get. And again, a game that they looked much, much better in, and some players that kind of needed something, like Tage with the good goal that he was able to get. And in general, the team just looked much faster, much better against a top team, even if they're missing their top players. Still a good team, obviously. So to see them come out in that game, win the way they did, I think goaltending looks fantastic. I think UPL looked really good. Again, not a lot of shots on him, but I think what he did get in the Kings game, he looked good. And Levi looks, once again, pretty incredible in what he's been able to do in his couple games. I absolutely hate that we are right back to the 1-1-1-1-1-1 every other game with the goalie nonsense that we are going through, that we went through last year. I cannot stand it. I don't know. I still don't get it. I don't know why they're doing it. It's very upsetting. UPL was really good at the end of last season when he took the reins and played tons of games in a row. I understand both goalies have been good. That's fine. I still don't like it. I don't know why we cannot have a goalie start multiple games in a row, especially this one. It was Thursday, Saturday. You had the games off in between. You had the days off. There was no reason. Again, I love Levi. He looks fantastic so far. No reason UPL shouldn't have started both games, in my opinion. And if they're going to keep doing this, I am not going to be happy about it.
Yeah, I think this is going to be the setup for the season.
And I hate it.
I think they're going to go Boston Bruins route, where they had Swayman and Allmark go back-to-back.
I don't like it.
I think buckle up, Phil. Strap that seatbelt in, because I think that's what's going to happen all year long. I don't hate it, but you can't get that run of goalies, great starts that you could if you put a starter back there nonstop. I still think it's probably going to be a 50, maybe closer to a 45 for UPL now. It's 4 games in, and we'll see how Lindy runs it. But I just based on the 1-1-1-1 like you were talking about, I could see it being a split. But yeah, Thursday I thought they played a great 40 minutes. I think these 2 games are what you're expecting and what you were hoping for when Lindy Ruff took over. Fast, tough, smart. Generated just 1 goal off the penalty kill. It's split second from Benson scoring. Tons of chances, but the third period they just couldn't close it out. Benson, Tage, tuck line, I thought they generated a ton, but it really didn't fill the net whatsoever. The sellout, crowd was great. Crowd was into it. They were ready to explode. Quinn and Cousins are still going to be issues. And when Peterka comes back, I really think they need to put Peterka on that kid line. And it's less about Peterka not earning the top role, and it's more about getting Quinn and Cousins to going. And I think they work better with Peterka on that line. More so Cousins than Quinn, because we saw a bit of Quinn towards the end of last season when he came back. But I really think you got to roll Peterka there, and that comes back to not getting a top 6 forward that you could put on the top line and keep Peterka on the kid line. But horrible dumb penalty on Samuelson. It's a dumb decision. I was surprised I didn't see him in the press box on Saturday. And then the power play. They went 0 for 5 in that one. They went 0 for 3 on Saturday. They're 0 for 14. So much for my bold prediction. I don't think there's any way they're capping that off now. I think it's dead and buried starting 0 for 14. If they get that going, man, it should start looking good. But, I think the first period, going down 1-0 and then having 41 seconds apart, I think getting that 2-goal lead early in the second was massive. Like I mentioned, they did benefit from no Barkov and Matthew Tkachuk, but I think this is a good rebound game to prove, hey, we can actually winning this one 5-2 rather than like a 3-2. I think it's a better statement. And yes, one of them was an empty net or whatever. Seeing that 5 up there after a 1-goal start to the season, it's promising. They just got to get this power play going. Keep Matt Ellis away from the power play still. I think I said that on the last show, but man, he must have his hands working, because that's the only explanation right now. And the second power play looks more fun than the first one. You got Zucker in front of the net in the first one. I don't know. Well, we got Wednesday versus Pittsburgh. You got Thursday versus Columbus and Saturday versus Chicago to come up, but it's 3 winnable games. Take 2 or 3 or 5 or 6 points there, and they're sitting pretty there, Phil.
Yeah, I think that Florida game was just a huge confidence boost to this team. If they lose that one, especially if they get blown out, or even worse, if they just score 1 goal again or get shut out, I think this team is starting to question itself, and probably implode a little bit. I know it's only 4 games in, but having that terrible of a start would have been very, very tough. So like you said, even though it's an empty netter, I think the confidence you gain from not only beating a team like Florida, but winning 5-2, especially putting that 5 up, I think it just proves to them that not only can they buy into Lindy's system, they can play it to, they can be successful with it and put in 5 goals using this system and beat a good team like Florida. So I think more than anything, that Florida game is just a big confidence boost to this team. Even if it's, you're still 1-3, doesn't look great to start the season, but hopefully that Florida one is the start of better things rather than if they lost that one. I think you're starting to get in a little bit of trouble this early in the season.
Yeah, fingers crossed this is actually the start of something rather than us kept saying that all last season.
That is also true.
Never came. But we're about 35 minutes through this episode. Let's dive into our first sponsor of this show before we jump into the NLL review like we've been doing the past 2 shows. So, Phil, take it away.
Tap That Tap Room is at 363 Delaware Street in Tonawanda, New York. They are Buffalo's first women-owned self-pour bar featuring 30 consistently rotating taps. They offer a variety of beers, cider, sours, seltzers, and malt beverages.
So Wednesday, the 16th, which is tonight, trivia with Geeks Who Drink starting at 7:30. Thursday, tomorrow, karaoke 7 to 11. Get out there and sing your little hearts out. And then Sunday, it's a light week for them, Phil. It's a light week for them. They must be taking it a bit off because live music, they've been nonstop for the last 6 months since we've started doing this. It's been insane. They deserve a Friday night off. Sunday, the 20th, Bills watch party, sound on, player of the game jersey. They will announce it. If you wear that player's jersey, you get a free gift. Then at halftime, they give a jersey away. Once again, sound is on. Where else can you go? Watch a Bills game. Watch a Bandits game. Watch whatever game they have on TV and have the sound on. It's a lovely experience, and you can go up there and get bars or beers whenever you want. You don't have to wait for the bartender to notice you at the bar. That is also fantastic. I love the concept of these self-pour bars, and I absolutely love Tap That Tap Room. Phil, they also host private parties, so give them a call if any of these events perk your interest or anything else you want to find out what's coming up, because Halloween is quickly approaching. You got your Halloween party on Saturday. Check out their Facebook page for all their posted events. Find out what's on tap and what's on deck at tapthattaproom.com. Let's dive into this week's review of the offseason for the NLL. No Bandits news because nothing happened. I guess that's a positive note because we didn't get any word Matt Vince retired. Yes. Still counting on him being back. We'll start with Philadelphia. I am going in alphabetical order regardless of what Pat's graphics say. I'm going in alphabetical order. Philadelphia's up first. They lost Ben McIntosh this offseason. Ian Lord and Chad Tutton all signed elsewhere. Dispersal draft. They didn't shock everybody, but man, I was shocked that he fell to number 3. Nick DeMood comes over. They snatch him up. They snatch up Anthony Malcolm. They snatch up Connor Sellers and Tim Manning. They get 4 in the dispersal draft. Then, because they got Nick DeMood, they ship out Zach Higgins to Ottawa, bring back a Phil Caputo, a Liam Patton, and a first-round pick from Ottawa. They trade Jackson Ganton out. They bring back Chris Jordan, and then they trade Tate Katoni to Buffalo. We already broke that down not that long ago. They also acquired Pat Foley from Halifax. They re-signed a bunch of guys here, Phil. The current shakeup of this roster right now is 37 players under contract. They got 1 with a qualifying offer. They got 1 RFA and 2 still needing deals. They are young enough to retain their rights, but this team, after all the moves they made last offseason, I am actually more impressed with the moves they made this offseason when everybody was so high on them last offseason.
Yeah, the big thing with this team is did they do enough? I think from these moves, I mean, Demude, man, this dispersal draft, just the more teams we go over, the more upset I get about this dispersal draft and the amount of talent that Panther City had on their roster, and Demude is another one of those players. He is incredible. He's only 25 years old. He is a franchise goalie for years and years and years to come. He has proven that he is incredible. In the one playoff game that they were able to make last year, he had an 85.7 save percentage. That is insane. Tough one to lose when you have that good of a game. 79.9 save percentage all of last season, which is also incredible. So as far as this team building, getting a goalie like that helps an insane amount because he's really good. But their offense was lackluster last year. It wasn't one of the better ones, and they didn't really do much to address it. So the offense concerns me a little bit. Their defense has some names, but again, not that deep of a defense. So the big thing with this team is just what I said. Did they do enough? I think Demude is massive and can pretty much take a team anywhere he wants to go if he has another good season. So I think this team has a good shot. I don't know. We'd have to look later as we get a little bit closer to the season where I have them ranked. I don't know if I'd have them making playoffs. I don't know why everybody was so high on them last season, but
We weren't. We weren't.
we were not, and they were not very good. And again, they made, like you said, they made some great offseason moves. I think this team in general is headed in the right direction. I just don't know, again, if this is enough this year to make a big enough push to make playoffs. But overall, there was a very good offseason for Philly, and they did make these steps to move the team forward.
Yeah, I think the adjustment they made on defense last year didn't really work out how they planned, and they ignored the offense too much. I mean, Holden Catoni being healthy for the full season, that will help them. Mitch Jones and Joe Rezateris are always going to be there. You added Phil Caputo. You re-signed Sam LeClaire, who probably wasn't going anywhere. He's only 25, going to have more time in here. Blaze Reardon, I think he's still a better outdoor goalie than he is forward here, but he's the captain of the team, and players rally around him. But it's Brennan O'Neill, and the first overall pick in this last draft. He hasn't played box in a while, so how long will it take him to integrate to the box system? He signed a 3-year deal, so he's there long haul for a while. It'll be very interesting to see because he's on the lefty side where they have Catoni, they have Jones, they have Reardon. They even have Chris Jordan, who was a 5th-round pick last year. So he's not going to be asked to be the savior of the franchise, which I think does help. He's not sitting there like the Jeff Teats of the world, where he's there to save the franchise and be that cornerstone name for it. He's going to be the name of the franchise and the face of the franchise if he develops into it. But because of the talent that's already there in the Joe Rezateris, with the household names of the Mitch Jones and the fan favorite and the names of Blaze Reardon, he doesn't have to be that big time name value, and they can slowly bring him along. But I think if this team really wants to make that next jump to be in playoff contention, you're going to need more out of the Phil Caputos who comes over from the deal. You're going to need a healthy season from Holden Catoni. So, and you're going to need Brennan O'Neill to step up and in the later half of the season and prove that he was worth the number 1 overall pick. You're looking at the defense. You're getting another season of Mitch Armstrong. You brought in Tyler Burton to take those faceoffs. You get another healthy season of Scott Dominy. You brought in Anthony Malcolm, Mike McConnell. You're getting a full season. Alex Pace signed a 3-year deal. Liam Patton should help the defense. Connor Sellers coming over. Ryan Wagner's there still. So there are a lot of name values here, along with the Nick Demude in net. I don't know how much of an upgrade Demude will be over Zach Higgins. I think you got him for the youth and to be there long haul. I think in terms of talent, I think they're pretty hand in hand. And Zach Higgins got lit up by shots last year, Phil. The defense needs to be better at limiting the great opportunities that Zach Higgins had to face last year. Yes, Nick Demude can make those saves, but the defense has to improve, the transition needs to improve, and the goal scoring needs to improve if this team's going to make that jump from a dead last team that we saw last year into what we're hoping to see coming up this season and being able to make a playoff push, because Paul Day removed himself from head coach. He's just focusing on GM role now. They brought in a Tracy Kelusky to, I think they really wanted to hire him if this went a little bit quicker. They waited as long as they could to get him in, but he is going to be behind the bench. So there's a lot of talent on this team. It'll be very interesting to see if they can put it all together coming up this season. So, Phil, that closes out Philly. If you're doing the alphabet with me this week, it is Rochester next. Dispersal draft. I wanted him so bad. Josh Medeiros. He signed a 1-year deal and signed a 1-year deal after he got drafted in the dispersal draft by Rochester. Yeah, this dispersal draft. This is the one that hurt me more than the Jonathan Donvilles and the Will Malcolms and the Nick Damoods.
Because those were untouchable.
This one hurt because I know it was going to be wondering if he could slip there,
right?
And he didn't. So Buffalo had no chance in him, but I was dreaming of the days. They traded out Thomas Whitty to Buffalo. They acquired Brandon Robinson. They acquired Anthony Jochum from Albany, and they acquired Brandon Slade from Toronto. They're getting a little bit beefier up on the forward group with Brandon Robinson, who still needs to sign a deal. He's still in the RFA right now, but they got bigger on defense as well. They brought back a lot of players. They signed Chad Tutton. They signed Ian Lord. They signed a bunch of rookies right now. They've got 33 players under contract, one RFA, which is Brandon Robinson. This team is looking to get over the schneid of what happened last year where, you saw Ryland Hartley go out early last year. You had to rely on Hutchcraft to be your backup. Can this team overcome and not finally because they made the playoffs the year before, but reach the expectations that this team is built for? They have the pieces. I think, to me, honestly, it comes down to goaltending. Can they get enough goaltending to pair with this forward group that can be absolutely lethal in this league?
Yeah, they were one of the higher scoring teams all of last year. And I do think finally is still fair. They were one of the big cluster of 8 and 10 teams. That's not a successful season. Whether you made playoffs or not, that's not good. It's not a good way to get in. They had that miracle, whatever it was, 1 in a billion odds of making playoffs, and everything had to work out perfectly, and they snuck in. So I wouldn't really call that much of a successful season last year for them, especially given the talent on this team. They have a solid offense. They have a solid defense. Like you said, I mean, I've gone through these rosters and pretty much put in bold the players that I'm kind of keeping an eye on, or players that have, a big impact on this team, and their defense is lit up, their offense is lit up. There's bold players all over this roster. So this team has every ability to be fantastic this year. Like you said, it's going to come down to, honestly, Hartley's health. I mean, that was the big thing last year. When he was in, he was good. He had a 78.4 save percentage in the games he played and a 9.71 goals against, which is incredible. And then in the playoff game he did make it into, he was 81.6 save percentage. So when Hartley was available, he was really good. Can he stay healthy? And honestly, for his sake and his health, I hope he can, or at least if he gets injured, it is not by a concussion. He has dealt with some very serious and scary injuries, so it was a big question he was going to come back. He did come back, and he looked good doing it, so it's a big matter of health, and if he can stay healthy, he is a good goalie. He's fun to watch. He's one of your favorites. He's all over the place. He's a good time. He's wild. He's angry. I do think they have a team that should be able to make a bigger push this year. McConvey, under his second year, should have a bigger, season. Curtis Knight, hopefully coming back healthy for them for a whole season. The rest of their team, honestly, just looks good. I mean, they have a very strong top-to-bottom team. It's going to come down to goaltending and if their whole team can just take that next step forward. But they had a solid offseason, didn't really need to do too much, but they should, in theory, be a playoff contending team, and they should have a better chance than they did last year.
Yeah, I do apologize. I completely forgot they snuck in. I don't know why I was thinking they didn't make it, but yeah, you saying that the odds for them to sneak in brought back all the memories. Yeah, they snuck in. But yeah, it comes down to the goaltending. If Ryland Hartley can play a full season, and hopefully he does, because I think the league and especially Rochester is better off with him in net. It's just definitely more fun to watch as well. You saw that you already read off the numbers. If he's able to complete a full 18-game season, I think Rochester has a very good shot at making the playoffs and being a threat in the playoffs. This offense, it's dangerous. You got Connor Fields, who's locked in for 5 more years in Rochester. You got Ryan Smith, who's a stud on the right side. You pair him with Ryan Lanchbury. You pair him with Kyle Waters and Curtis Knight on the right side. That's some of the best right forwards in the entire league. And then you're looking at the lefties. I think the biggest name to keep an eye on and needs to step up is Thomas McConvey, and a former first-round pick in 2022, first overall pick. He needs to complement Connor Fields more and be more of a legit weapon over there to take some of the shine or the threat off of Connor Fields. Because if you can be that goal scorer, if you can be that threat on the left side, they can't double team and shadow Connor Fields nonstop. They need more help on that left side, and if he's able to step up, this offense becomes even more dangerous. You're looking at the defense and transition game. Matt Gilroy. He's one of the most. Still don't know how he's underrated, but he's one of the most underrated players in the league. Yes, I would absolutely love him on Buffalo, but he's on Rochester right now. But you got Taylor Jensen, you got Anthony Jochum, who comes over from Albany, you got Josh Medeiros, who comes over from the Panther City, you got Chad Tutton, who comes over from Philly. So I think they did a very good job of adding pieces to an already developing defensive and transition game where if Ryland Reese can bounce back to what he was 2 seasons ago, you got Brandon Slade who's has playoff experience. You got Chad Tutton who has playoff experience. Jochum whoever Jochum plays for makes it to the finals. So if you're a betting man, I would bet on Rochester to make the finals just based on history, because he was with Colorado when they made the finals. He was with Albany when they made the finals last year. But yeah, for Rochester, it really does come down to, and if I'm sound like a broken record, it's because I'm a broken record. It comes down to the health of Rylan Hartley in net, because I think this team has all the pieces to be a threat in the playoffs, and if they can put it all together, this offense, this defense, and this transition game along with the goaltender, I think they possibly could make a deep run into the playoffs because they're set for it, they're young enough, and they're all in their prime. So this could be a very dangerous team and a team that we could be paying attention to in the Februarys, March, and Aprils of the season.
Yeah, I do think, again, we haven't gone over how we see it all playing out, but I do think that they should be a top 8, if not top 6 type team if everything kind of falls into place for them.
Yeah, I agree. That's coming up in February. I'm not announcing the day, but
February.
We're bringing that back in February, so keep an eye on it. But we'll move forward to San Diego now. This was a team that fell short of expectations once again. So what do?
Like they do every year.
Yeah, they kind of shook everything up. Out goes Dane Doby. In comes Callum Crawford. Sort of. He's in the dispersal draft. They rejected the franchise tag, so he's still a free agent out there right now. But they traded away Curtis Dixon. They traded away Jacob Dunbar. So, Phil, already this offense is looking completely different. No Doby, no Dixon, no Dunbar. They brought in your boy and Zach Currier, along with the 14th overall pick, in a trade that sent Dixon to Calgary. Still mind-blowing that it makes no sense from Calgary's perspective, but whatever. Dane Doby and Curtis Dixon have fun in Calgary. They brought back Westberg, who was in UFA. He signed 3 more deals there, for 3 more years there. They brought in the likes of, you ready for this one, Phil? Rob Hellier. We mentioned him when we were talking about Las Vegas. They brought in Ryan Benesh. We mentioned him when we were talking about Halifax. And Ben McIntosh. We just mentioned him talking about Philly. They brought in 3 studs in the forward group. They've got currently 45 players under contract right now. We're talking about Buffalo is going to have a competitive camp. My God, it's going to be a competitive camp in San Diego. Only 21 players make the team, including 4 practice squad players. They're going to have to trim so many players. But this offense is going to be very dangerous if they meet expectations. They had to replace Austin Stotts, who's suspended for the start of the season. I think it's 7 games, and that's before of all the other stuff that just happened. So there could be added more suspensions. Who knows if we ever see him play in the NLL again. But you got Ryan Benesh, you got Kyle Jackson and Jake Govette on the lefties. You're looking for the righties. The righties are absolutely deadly. They re-signed Westberg, like I already mentioned, but that's where you get the Rob Hellier, the Ben McIntosh, the Trey LeClaire, who might be the third or fourth fiddle on the righties right now, but they seem more righty heavy. But man, this team, Phil, is the forward group at least can be one of the most dangerous ones in the league. It doesn't come down to what they do in the regular season, but it really comes down to, hey, are they able to get over the hump in the playoffs, and is this the group that finally does it?
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, the offseason that we've been watching this team and just the players they continue to sign over and over and add, this team is very scary looking. They are one of the scarier teams to me in the entire league right now. I mean, like you mentioned, Dobie and Dixon went out. That was 134 points combined, but between Benesh, Hellier, and McIntosh, they added 227 points from last year. So, yeah, they lost some, but they gained even more. And, I mean, Zach Courier, one of my favorite players in the entire league, coming over to them as well. They're stacked. This is a team that is pushing really, really hard like they do pretty much every year. We'll see if they can finally get over the hump and get out of their own way and make it somewhere. But they have the team to do it for sure. I mean, their offense is on paper one of the best in the league. They were one of the best in the league last year. And again, 2 players go out, yes, but they brought in arguably even more talent to replace them. Austin Stotts not being there will be interesting. I know Benesh had a very good season last year, but Stotts, 102 points for them last year. He is one of their best players, so him being suspended for as long as he is, and like you said, possibly even more. We'll see. That left side got weaker. Jackson and Benesh, both fantastic, both going to be fine, but losing Stotts to that is a bit of a big blow to them. But the righties,
they need somebody else to step up over there.
They do. Berg, Hellier, LeClaire, McIntosh, that right side is stacked, and they are perfectly fine over there with plenty of talent. That's going to be scary, especially a few of those guys being assist machines and Berg being what he is. I could see them setting him up very, very nicely in their defense transition. Baptiste, Courier, Holding, Rubish, who I love a lot, Shumay. Really, really good defense in transition, and then one of, if not the best goalie, at least for his age, in the entire NLL. Easily one of the best out there. Origlieri is very, very good. So top to bottom, this team is where they should be and where they were last year, which is just a really, really solid team, and they should be pretty scary again. It's going to be interesting to see who kind of comes out on top this year. I think there's a few teams that are really, really pushing forward. And honestly, their forwards that they drafted are going to be interesting to keep an eye on. I mean, Emlott was one that I was really looking forward to for the Bandits to possibly scoop up. He's a really big lefty lane setter. And then Accioni, I believe, might have been a lefty as well. He was another one that was pretty high up on a lot of people's boards. So even their lefties, like you said, 45 players. We'll see if there's any trades that go down, but a lot of people are going out of this team. But the core that they have there and the main starters are going to be very scary.
Yeah, this is a team that, like I mentioned, it's not about what they do in the regular season anymore because they're expected to do very well. It's what happens in the playoffs. And you got the number 2 overall seed, if I remember correctly, and you couldn't get past the young rookies of Albany. So this is a team that kind of regrouped what they were looking for the forward. They got a little bit younger, minus the Ryan Benesh signing. But, Rob Hellier's a little bit younger than the Dane Dobies and the Curtis Dixons. Ben McIntosh is only 33 years old. You re-sign the Wes Bergs, keeping him around for 3 more years. So this offense, minus the Austin Stotts question mark of who's going to be that third lefty that steps up. That's going to be a very important spot to watch because you can't just run out Benesh and Jackson. Benesh is 39, Jackson's 31. They're both very good players, but you're going to need another player on that side to step up, and who will it be is the big question mark. There's an opening on that side. But you already talked about defense, Courier, Holding. You drafted some young players back there, and DeSocio and Jacob Power, who was the 12th overall pick. You still got some picks from prior years, and Rosenka, a second-round pick, who I really liked his time last year. Just he got hurt, and you really didn't see a ton from him. So it's going to be very interesting to see if they're able to get over that hump and finally reach the finals that they're built for. Because Orig, Man, it's 22 years old. He's like 20 years younger than Matt Vince. Seeing a finals between a Matt Vince and an O-Rig, that would be very fun to watch, because it's the old guard watching the new guard come in, and who gets the battle there between, a massive age gap, but two of the best in the league right now. But that will wrap up San Diego. On our next show, we'll talk about Saskatchewan, Toronto, and Vancouver to wrap up the NLL, and the final show of October will be dedicated just to the Buffalo Bandits offseason before you get you ready for the lead up in November to a fun NLL in Buffalo Bandits season. Phil, that wraps up this episode. Is there anything else you want to add to it before we shut it down for a week? I continue the process of selling and moving, and I did have to squeeze it in. Anything else on this episode?
Thank you to the Bills for removing Amari Cooper from Cleveland. My fantasy team hopefully thanks you quite a bit. Really excited. I'm not only for the Bills, but also for fantasy. Cannot wait to see what he looks like.
I have him in Dynasty. I was this close to sending him out in a trade-off for this weekend, so I'm very happy I didn't. But, on our next show, we got Bills-Titans, we got 3 Sabres games, and like I mentioned, we got Saskatchewan, Toronto, and Vancouver to close out our look around the NLL this offseason, what they did, and kind of what their team looks like currently before we get into November, where we got predictions. We got bold predictions, we got Bandits predictions, we got team review, so on and so forth. We got so many fun things in November, but especially in December through May as we kick off our 4th season of covering the Buffalo Bandits. Again, your only Bandits podcast that goes year-round, even though sometimes there's absolutely nothing to talk about with the Buffalo Bandits.
We make it work.
Yeah, we make it work. We always find fun ways to do it. But thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky if you still use it at Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. You can check out our store on our link tree on our socials, or shop tab at the top of the website. You can follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, including YouTube, and make sure you leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time. Bye-bye.